Hey, welcome to New York. I'm John, and we're here for a special edition of Bronze and Modern Gods. Hi, Richard. Start spreading your legs, Richard.
Hi, John.
I'm back. I was in New York for some work, air quotes, work.
Hmm.
And I'm back. Hi, everybody. It's Bronze and Modern Gods. You know how we do here. Underrated book of the week, viewer mail, all sorts of stuff. Uh, Richard, New York was fun. I
Good.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of time to go to shops, but I did make it a point to stop by Midtown Comics in their downtown location for the very first time because they usually stay in Midtown, but for some
Hmm.
reason this time I stayed in the financial district downtown, way downtown. I will say I quite liked Midtown Comics downtown. It's very different than their Times Square location, which is very touristy. This
Hmm.
one is much less tourist oriented. They got a lot more for comic book fans and readers. Lots of back issues, a lot of wall books at that location, t-shirts, the nerdiest t-shirts. I did a little Christmas shopping, Richard. You will soon see. Wink, wink.
Now, where's their warehouse based out of? Is it?
I don't know where their warehouse is. I just know they have a Times Square location. They have a downtown location. I think they have a third location somewhere in Manhattan. But if you're in New York and you want to go to a Midtown Comics, I will tell you, get on the subway, grab a taxi, go downtown, go to the downtown one. Don't go to Times Square. So that is my recommendation. Hey, if you like Bronze and Modern Gods, Richard and I, why don't you hit subscribe, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze and Modern Gods, leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Lots of debate over whether or not we should continue the hot book of the week, Richard. Did you see all the spirited comments?
I did, and I appreciate all the back and forth and conversation. Now, that's exactly what I wanted to see.
So, no decision because you guys were split 50-50. Thanks a lot. I thought there would be a route. I thought it would be either one dominant opinion, but no, it was literally 50-50. And I'm not saying literally, figuratively. I believe if you did a scientific extrapolation and analysis, it would be 50-50. So without further ado, here's our hot book of the week. Richard, what is it?
Yeah, the hot book this week is Highlander #0 from Dynamite Comics. I forgot to write the year down for this, so I don't remember. I think it's 2006.
Sounds right.
Um, there's a spike in sales following news that the remake of Highlander, starring Henry Cavill, by John Wick's director, Chad Stahelski.
Good
Uh,
for you.
yeah, it's still on the way. It,
I saw
I,
that
I
name.
am. I'm a huge Highlander. The first Highlander movie, is anything with Sean Connery is automatically awesome. But it's one of those movies from the '80s that really just draws people in. The second one, oh, it's horrible. Don't pretend there wasn't a second movie.
Is
So
that the
I
quickening?
would love. Yes, yes.
Okay.
Pretend it's not there. Henry Cavill, who is one of my favorite actors, the fact that he's not Superman anymore is very saddening. But I would love to see him in a new property. I'd love to see him to be the Highlander, and a new series of movies based on that property, resurrecting the old title. It's like I said, the first one was great. It was amazing. It's one of those movies that marks that phase of my life. I loved it, and so seeing it revitalized would be amazing. This book here happens in the Dynamite comic book was a 25-cent book. It's going for about $25 on eBay right now. So
Wow.
grab a copy. The 9.8 is going for about $130. So it's fairly affordable. It's and this, this is one of those rumor things, spec kind of things, um, that, be careful about investing too much in until there's more solid information. But, it's I wanted to talk about it because I like to talk about Highlander.
Have you read this? Is it any
I have
good?
not. I have not read it, not at all.
I will say 25 cents going for $25. That's what, a 10,000% increase on your investment?
It's amazing. Yep.
You're better at math than I am. I'm not sure if that's right. Is it 10,000?
If you invested a quarter back in 2006, you are definitely making your money back selling it on eBay right now.
Exactly. All right, go grab them if you want them. Moving from Highlander to show and tell. Richard, before we start, why don't you tell everybody what your show and tell is this week?
It's big zero. I have books. I have books in flight. Some that they just haven't arrived yet, so I'll have them here for next week's show and tell.
So no show and tell from Richard this week. So I'm going to whip through mine pretty quickly. I have a few things just grabbed from the collection. Not new. I've had these a while. Tales of Suspense, number 66. The first Silver Age Red Skull.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's a 7.0 off white to white pager. I think I got this years ago in a bargain bin for like $5. So not too shabby. It came back what I thought it was going to come back. 7.0. Didn't expect much more than that. What would John's collection be without Young Men? Young Men, number 25.
Uh,
Very significant book. This is the first revival of the timely Big Three: Human Torch, Submariner, and Captain America, after all their books were canceled in 1948, 1949. A few years later, I guess Martin Goodman thought, hey, let's try it again and revive them. And this, of all books to place these superheroes in, they just picked this title, Young Men, along with another title called Men's Adventures, to relaunch them. And this is a 4.5 off white pages. Richard, this is funny. This is one of my favorite books because I was always, as a kid, I was fascinated with the 50s revival because they were
mhm.
so out of reach. They had never been reprinted at that time in the 70s. So I was like, what were those issues like? What were they like? I forgot I had this book.
Really?
I was going through my stuff today to find stuff for show and tell, and I saw it. I'm like, oh yeah, I did get a really nice copy of this a while ago. I think I got this right before the great comic boom of 2020.
Oh, that's a great
Boy,
cover.
glad I did. Yeah, I think it is this a jam cover. It's Carl Burgos is who gets the credit. I think it is probably all him, but yeah, look at how reduced the revival of Captain America and Bucky is. They're just like the bottom corner
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we're gonna bring Cap back too. Um, and then continuing my Marvel Atlas timely obsession, Venus, number
Oh,
9,
nice.
a 2.5 white pager. I bought this slabbed. It does have rusty staples. I don't think it's been cleaned. If you see, there's a lot of staining. This is very tempting to crack out and try, the IHOP, the Pancake House,
A
the
little syrup on the spine. Yeah.
hydrogen, pressing
Mm.
thing. If you know, you know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't want
still
to mess
skeptical
with it.
about that.
Yeah, this is a pivotal issue because issues 1 through 8 were very romance oriented. I
Mhm.
mean, she was the goddess of love, but it was really she was working at a newspaper, and it was all about her romantic misadventures as a goddess on Earth. And this is the first issue where they start to really lean into the fantasy element. You can see the devil there. Hi,
Mhm.
devil. Hi, Satan. How are you? And also see the Marvel comic badge under
Oh,
the logo.
yeah.
Yeah, so 1950 early use of the Marvel comic badge. So that's why I like that. Yeah, so that's my show and tell this week. I know you guys are probably really disappointed. There's no Doll Man bondage cover of the week. Psych! There it is.
Oh, okay. So describe that cover.
Well, it's Feature Comics number 106. It is the Doll Man bondage cover of the week, and Doll Man is trussed up as usual in a beaker, a a little laboratory beaker with a scientist about to pour some sort of probably corrosive fluid on him from another test tube. I think the little details make this cover. If you look, the scientist has hairy knuckles.
Oh,
As someone with hairy knuckles, I can appreciate that. So there you go. Can't say I didn't give you a Doll Man bondage cover of the week this week.
I'll have books
Richard,
next week.
yes, we miss your show and tell. Please have books next week.
Yes, I will. I apologize.
We'll move on from that tragedy to viewer mail.
You've got mail.
My first piece of viewer mail comes to our email, bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com, from our friend down under, David Powell. David, before I start, how are those tickets coming? Need those plane tickets to come to Australia. Hi, John and Richard. Hope you are both well. Enjoying the show as always, and very much still working on if we can arrange something here in Australia for you both. I'm at a local comic and toy fair this weekend with Neville at Grill Hunters, so plan to chat with him. Make this happen. As Richard mentioned, when we first met at Baltimore Comic Con, I wanted to follow up on the results of the CGC submission and grades with you both. If you guys remember, we had a live stream with David where he showed us a bunch of Pence copies, including a Hulk #1 Pence edition that he was going to submit to CGC. Well, the good news is I've started my own YouTube channel, still only 35 cents. And for my first issue/episode, I thought I'd share the results on that. I'm still very early on the YouTube journey, but I hope you enjoy the video. David, I watched it. Richard watched it. We loved it. We'll have a link in the description to your YouTube channel. We have subscribed. I am jealous of your editing skills already. I'm jealous of your thumbnail skills already. Please do both for us for free with no expectations.
Everybody head to his channel, give him a subscribe and a thumbs up on the video. I'm sure he'd appreciate it.
Thank you, David. And what is your first piece of viewer mail, Richard?
My first piece is from YouTube commenter, Friendly Neighborhood Linguist. Nice to see Newton Comics get some love. Talking about my Newton Comics Amazing Spider-Man #5 last week. My first exposure to comics was through my uncle's collections of Newton, Federal, and Jaffa comics. He'd left a suitcase full of them at my grandparents' house, and I would look at them when we went to visit. Sometimes my grandparents or parents would let me take one home. It's interesting that views on these books seem to be changing. For years, these books weren't considered real comics, but now seem to be getting some recognition among collectors. A similar thing is happening with Australian price variants, APVs. If you guys ever make it to Australia, come to Adelaide and say hi. I'd be happy to. This is, I think that foreign variants are really coming into their own at this point in time. People are collecting them in higher frequency, and your story about having a suitcase full of comics is so similar to my story, where my father gave me a stack of coverless Legion of Superheroes or adventure comics from the 60s and early 70s, and that's what cemented comics in my mind as being something that I wanted to continue. So the fact that you had that kind of start is very similar to mine. So thank you very much for your comment.
Our next piece of viewer mail comes to our Gmail at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com from someone who calls himself Pool Guy. Pool Guy, I'm a big fan of your video work. I've seen many of them.
Oh, are you a big fan?
Guys, big fan of the channel. I recently came across an Instagram account with AI-generated Wonder Woman art. I must admit that some of these images are quite striking and rival those of traditional comic artist-created work. Do you think we're getting closer to the age where comics, at least the art, can be created strictly via AI tools, and that many comic book artists will be rendered obsolete or at a minimum with less bargaining power? I know this was addressed recently with a Writers Guild strike, but is it possible that AI could be more threatening to the comic book artists and creators than even the TV and film world? I would be interested in hearing your thoughts. Sincerely, Waka Chaka Chaka Baka Bow, Pool Guy. And here are some of the images from that Wonder Woman account. Richard, look at those.
Those are amazing. Yeah.
Here's my first take. If I was Alex Ross and all I did was covers or lithographs, I would be worried. I would be concerned. That one Linda Carter looking Wonder Woman looks like an Alex Ross painting, correct?
It does.
I would be worried. What I don't think at this point I would be worried about is the ability for AI to render sequential storytelling. Can it tell a story, through panels? I've seen people create AI comics on YouTube and it kind of looks okay. I think it's a starting point. I think it's like AI for writing. It's kind of like to help you break that writer's block and get started on something, but then you have to go in and make it less obviously AI generated. I don't
Mhm.
know. It's so early that I don't know if we can fully answer that. I will say the robot image has a common problem with AI, which is fingers and hands.
Yeah, yeah.
Look at
Fingers
how many
are.
fingers are on that robot's hand.
It is a problem. They're addressing it in more recent models. And I agree with you. I if all you're doing is covers, there is a danger potentially here. But the thing about AI, and I deal with it some for work, is that it is generative. In other words, it takes what it knows and then takes your question and provides additional information, and that ends up being the picture. But it's only based on what it knows. There is no creativity, there is no inspiration, no soul in what it generates. um, and as long as you're an artist that um, puts your heart into your work and expresses yourself in a way that this system, this AI, can't really do, I think you're going to be okay here in the short term. Long term, like John says, AI's biggest weakness is consistency. It can generate a series of pictures very easily, but to generate an image of a person wearing the same outfit in 10 panels is almost beyond its ability. It's and um, as long as this, you're trying to tell a story in that sequential way, I think you're going to have a problem in the short term. Now, in the long term, we talk a few years in the future, all bets are off. I think AI as a technology is just going to continue to improve, and it's going to force us as humans to come up with innovative ways of being able to express ourselves and express our creativity. And from that aspect, I think it's a good thing because you get into a lot of tropes and a lot of patterns that we repeat, like having the ASM 300 cover for 800 different homages.
God, it might as well be AI.
Yeah, really. It's going to break us out of those patterns because an AI could do that. You just say, here's this cover, make something like that cover with a panda in the middle of it.
Yeah,
Um,
if you're a shop and you're doing a shop exclusive, why pay an artist anymore? You just say make a Spider-Man 300 homage, but put my stupid little character in it.
right, and from that aspect, I look forward to it replacing that kind of. It's just not helpful art. It's really repetitive. So as long as you, and like I said, as long as you have creativity and your art is inspired, and you come up with new concepts and new ideas, AI is never going to be able to duplicate that. That's the one weakness that it has because it can only regurgitate what it already knows. So it's going to help us as humans to learn to express ourselves better, I think.
I think there's two bigger problems that we're talking about here. There's no union for artists and creatives in comics. There's no union, so there's no one to fight for their rights. Um, and the other issue is the lack of, I guess, giving a crap on DC and Marvel's end to pay these people appropriately. So that's why the stories and the art are so uninspired now in comics because it frankly, guys, it doesn't pay. Why would if you were Art Adams, your page rate is out of reach now for the print runs that they're doing. So you get these newbies that you'll never. I hate to say it. Will we ever see a new Alan Davis again? Will we ever see a new Jack Kirby? No, a Rob Liefeld. because unless it's just someone that really is passionate about drawing comics, like Eric Larson, he does it. He's that Savage Dragon doesn't make any money. Are you kidding? Um, but he does it because he loves it. But why would you do it for Marvel? I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, why would you do it in today's market? Why would you create a property, for Marvel? Why would you create a character for Marvel and be basically working for them in your creativity? The
Yeah,
way
and
the way that I'm sorry.
sorry, Richard. It's just to get to that point. It's why you get like the people that are like, oh, they're just taking white characters and making them black or Hispanic or Latina or whatever. Yeah, because if I'm someone that's, really got a really good idea for a character that happens to be a minority, I'm going to keep it for myself. I'm just going to regurgitate an existing property.
Right.
So that's why you get watered down versions of the icons.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, I think we're drifting from the subject, but it definitely is a
Wait,
problem
we're
with
getting
modern
off topic.
with modern big publishers. They're not paying. Like you said, the Alex Ross movie. Kingdom Come. I don't think we'll ever see another book like that.
Yeah.
Just because it would cost an astronomical amount of money to pay Alex to do the artwork, and yeah, it's difficult to have that level of quality when Marvel and DC's are they're basically paying a low wage for that work.
I think it reflects in the MCU. Comics are R&D, research and development
Hmm.
for the studio, and they've gone through all of the classic storyline or a lot of the classic storylines. So now they're reduced to doing, Civil War and things like that, and that's why they're not so good anymore. So yeah,
That's a good point. I never thought of it that way when the early movies were so popular because they were doing a lot of those older storylines.
you're doing the
Uh,
origin stories.
yeah, yeah. That just says
That's why
MCU hire Chris Claremont.
Fantastic Four and X-Men might save the MCU because now they have a chance to do those movies from the beginning the way they should have been done.
Yeah,
Although I will defend the first X-Men movie. I did like the first
I
X-Men
did
movie.
too. X-Men
Yeah.
movies they were okay. The Fantastic Four movies though were total draws.
Stinky poo poo. What is your next piece of viewer mail?
My next piece of view mail is from Nestor McDade 13. You gentlemen have a great blend of all aspects of comic books, speculation, good reads, and art. No need to change anything, and I say keep up the good work. Okay, this is one of the positive comics that we saw. Thank you so much, Nestor. It was a positive comment about our format because we've been questioning whether or not we wanted to change up some things like getting rid of Hot Book of the Week. So I'm like John said earlier, it's kind of 50-50. I'm leaning to leave it the way it is until there's some unquestioning hatred towards the topic, and we can revisit it then.
Yeah, I just think you know, we're old men. It's an old audience. We like comfort. We like stability.
We don't like
So
change.
I do like learning something new every week. Uh, but yeah, we're gonna keep it the way it is for now. But there's might be something new coming down the pike. Wink, wink. My next piece of viewer mail is from our email at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com from Stephen Vokalov. I hope that I said that right, Stephen. This is in reference to my very nice Police Trap #6 that I picked up in Baltimore Comic
Mhm.
Con. Here is a picture of Steven's copy of Police Trap. Slabbed, it is a 5.0. Nice. And Steven writes, are you going to take down my top of census? Steven, I sure am. But not right now because I'm mad at CGC and I'm going to wait until I know I'm not going to get fingerprints on my notes
Oh,
or light finger bends because the
yeah.
grader flipped through my book and then some idiot took off because they flipped through it and left fingerprints. So, yes and no is my answer.
CGC is the bad boyfriend. You think he's going to change, but not going to.
He didn't mean it. What's your next piece of viewer mail?
My next piece is from friend of the show, Charlie Dog 7683. Hi,
You
Charlie
are
Dog.
all Australia all the time this week. Did you
Yeah,
mean to
I
do?
am. I appreciate the feedback from our Aussie viewers or listeners. Hey, Newton Comics makes it a long awaited appearance. Yes, my Newton comic came, shut it off last week. The reason you don't see many Newtons for sale, even on eBay Australia, is because they are rare and high grade. And being so important to our personal comics reading history, we like to hang on to them. I would never consider selling my collection, even with Avengers #1, for example, listed at $600 in high grade at Key Collector. Yeah, then that, as I talked earlier, I think these, they're not foreign variants to you; they're the local variant. Are really just skyrocketing in price because people are finally realizing that these books are undervalued. When you can get like an Avengers #1 for $600, even at that price, I feel that that's an undervalued book. Now, these books are these Australian variants are um, reprint stories of the original books from the early '60s, reprinted in the was it the late '70s? John, is
I
that
believe it's mid 70s to late 70s. Yeah.
so? This isn't a Australian um, version of Avengers #1. It's the same the Avengers #1, but with an Australian price on it. This is basically a reprint, but these are really highly prized, as Charlie Dog says. They're highly prized by the people who read these books when they first came out. So I have a hard time coming across these books on sources like eBay. When they do show up, they're usually pretty expensive, but they rarely do show up. I'm on the market right now for a Fantastic Four #5, the first Doctor Doom.
Are you
Uh,
going on eBay Australia though and looking?
Charlie Dog brings up a good point. I have not. There is an art to searching eBay. There is a lot of cross posting across, but there are some local posts. Um, I have not specifically gone to eBay Australia, and I think that's something I need to do. I go to eBay Canada a lot. I go to eBay UK a lot, but I have not gone to eBay Australia. So maybe that's something I'm going to have to put in my rotation to try to find these books.
Have Australian collectors cleaned out these books from shops in the major metropolitan areas like Sydney, Melbourne? Maybe we should go to Perth.
Oh, let's go comic book hunting in Perth. That sounds like fun.
Yeah. And go see where In Excess were formed. They're from Perth, right? I believe In Excess was in
Are
Perth.
they? Okay.
Oh my God, the first four In Excess albums. Oh, the debut, Underneath the Colors, Shabu Shabab, The Swing, bam, 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 bam. I know people like Listen Like Thieves, but I thought that was a weaker album. I know it was their breakthrough, but I like the synthy dancey In Excess.
Mhm.
I am challenging you, Richard, to come up with a segue right now.
You know, all those In Excess albums you're talking about, you have to be an old fart really to understand any of those or recognize those titles.
Go on.
It's the old fart rule.
Yeah, not so easy, is it, buddy?
It's not easy. I never said it was. Never
Okay, old
said it was.
roll. So when we go back 40 years to 1983, and Richard, what is this week's book for the old fart rule?
This week I picked Amazing Spider-Man #245 from 1983. This is the death of the Hobgoblin. Writer
Great,
Roger Stern. Pardon?
great cover.
Yes, great cover. All these covers were excellent during this particular story arc. Roger Stern was the writer. John Romita Jr. was on pencils for this book. And this is, Hobgoblin to me is uh, one of my favorite Spider-Man villains. Maybe because I was there I wasn't there reading comics when Green Goblin came out. I was there for the Hobgoblin. So, his storylines are more meaningful to me. In this particular issue, he dies with air quotes. It's actually somebody named Lefty Donovan who dies impersonating the Hobgoblin.
Yeah,
Um,
Lefty Donovan, man. It's a gangster. Lefty Donovan.
but it's like I said, this is part of a story arc, and I really really enjoyed this. I remember when this came out back in the early '80s, and I was reading Spider-Man hardcore about this time. There have been times where I read it less because I was less interested in the particular storyline, but this one was really good. So if you come across Amazing Spider-Man 245, it's an interesting part of the storyline. I see a lot of potential with the MCU with before all of this talk about change to the stories that they're telling as part of the MCU. I think that the Hobgoblin was slated for a Spider-Man movie. It may still be since Sony's doing Spider-Man movies, but you never know. GPA for this book, the last GPA sale in September was for $215. The previous sale was like 135, which is pretty surprising. So for some reason, we had a big spike there. Newsstand book is going for about 124 for a 9.8, so still affordable. And like I said, I think it's an interesting read.
Wow, what a great run! Roger Stern and John Romita Jr., and then followed up by Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz. I mean, this is kind of a second golden age
Hmm.
for Spider-Man, and the Hobgoblin was just a brilliant way to bring back the Green Goblin, but without Harry and Norman and all that baggage.
Hmm.
And you had a mystery that people were obsessed with, and then just awful, awful resolution because the originator and the only guy who knew his secret identity got fired from the book. I think he either left or got fired. I think he got fired. And it was like, oh, crap. Why would you do that? But such a great run. So underrated, like our underrated books segue. What's yours, Richard?
My underrated book my underrated book this week is a book called God Shaper, God Shaper #1 from 2017. It's a Boom Studios book. Story by Simon Spurrier, art by Jonas Goonface. I'm assuming I'm assuming that's an alias.
No,
Uh,
I think the goon faces go back to Wells.
if your name really is Goonface, I apologize for the joke. If not, I think it's a pretty cool
You're
alias.
very insulting, Richard. It's pronounced Guanfachi.
Oh, oh, I am sorry. I did not realize.
Yeah, that's a good face.
This book is okay. So it's one of these theme books where they set up a scenario and then they tell a story based on that scenario. In this scenario, electricity for some reason stopped working. They don't know why, and it was replaced with everybody on the planet gets a god.
Oh,
Every god on the planet has paired with a human and a human worshiper. So in this society, everybody's walking around with a god, and those gods have powers and abilities. And he's your buddy. And it's this symbiotic relationship between the god and the human. But there are certain people out there called shapers who don't have a god paired with them, and they have the ability to go and alter the abilities and powers of other people's gods.
hmm.
And there are also out there some gods who don't have a human companion. And so, two of these, a godless human and a humanless god, get together, and the story it kind of focuses on their adventures. And they, as always in these storylines, come across some big threat that's threatening this world, and they are tasked to find a solution. I won't go too deep into it, but it's very similar to. I get the same premise feeling from 8 Billion Genies, which came out earlier this year. Um, in 8 Billion Genies, you had every human being had a genie that was paired with him, and that genie could tell one wish, and so it has the same kind of feel to it. I like the art style for this book. It's
You love some goon face.
I love Goonface. Yeah, he's doing good work. No, it's a very stylized art style. I enjoy it. It's easy to look at, and the story is pretty easy to follow too. So if you're looking for a cool book that you may have fallen under the radar, raws for this book are going from about $3 to $10. It's not a very expensive book, but it falls into that same genre. If you enjoyed 8 Billion Genies, I think you'll like this particular storyline too.
Oh, very cool. Never heard of this before. You're throwing me for a loop, but now I need to check out the artistic stylings of Mr. Goonface. My underrated book this week is Captain America, number 164. This is the first appearance of Nightshade, the Queen of the Werewolves. And this came out in 1973. And whoever designed Nightshade, whether it was John Romita or Alan Weiss, who drew the inside, I'm convinced they saw Shaka Khan on the Midnight Special.
Oh,
And
really?
she looks like Shaka from the Rufus days, right?
I never. I think you're biased. I think you're a little biased, John.
Tell me something good. Meow meow. Nightshade, she's the queen of the werewolves. This is a fun example of how much the Bronze Age horror trend was affecting Marvel books across the entire line. You had Man Wolf in Amazing Spider-Man, and here you have the Falcon, who has been turned into a werewolf by Nightshade. Don't worry, Cap. You'll get your turn. She'll turn you into a werewolf a couple decades later in the infamous Cap Wolf storyline. Also attempt to turn Cap into a woman. That's a whole nother story. Rest in peace, Mark Grunwald. You were a genius. Nightshade would go on to appear in season 2 of Luke Cage on Netflix. This was an excellent fill-in by Alan Weiss, despite all of John Romita touching up his Captain America faces all throughout this issue. You can see like the Alan Weiss style and then the Captain America John Romita face pasted over it. CGC of this book CBC 9.8, I should say, last sold in 2020 for $541.
Wow. Wow.
My question is this: is Nightshade Marvel's first female African American supervillain? I can't think of another one before this.
Supervillain? No, I can't either.
Yeah. Little bonus of this book: another appearance by the Yellow Claw inside. I believe it's his first appearance since his 4-issue title got canceled in the 50s. Wow. Nightshade, she would go on to reform and become the new Nighthawk, replacing Kyle Richmond as Nighthawk in the Marvel Universe. So Captain America 164, check it out if you like some Shaka and Rufus and you want to have that in your collection. Tell me that you like it. Yeah. Richard, if people like it, what should they do?
Oh, they should go to Facebook and Instagram and Bronze and Modern Gods channel and give us thumbs up, likes, follows, and all that jazz. Or they can go to the bronzeandmoderngods.com website and read what John writes.
Spoken like a grandfather. If you like this video, hit like, hit subscribe, and we will catch you next time.
Everybody stay safe.